Hello, welcome back to another episode of the build. So I've got the timing belt on now. I didn't do a time lapse of this, but she's all on now. The belt is off a 6G74, so off the 3.5 litre I think it is. It's a 265 tooth belt. It fitted on pretty easy, just had to, because I had the tensioner that I had made, I could just put a bit more tension on it to get it a bit further out. So she's nice and tight, marks all line up reasonably well. I've also did some digging and found my cam position sensor, so that's all on now. So as for the timing, one of my mates, Brad, cheers Brad for letting me borrow one of your rocker covers, is really muchly appreciated. He had a rocker cover, a spare one just sitting around, so he let me borrow it so I could do my timing marks, which are, as you can see, there, and the other one's down there. So I managed to time it all up, so now I've just got to put my other cover back on and transfer the marks over, so then for next time I put a belt on. So that's pretty much it for the motor. It's I just got to glue the rocker covers down, and she's pretty much ready to go back into the car. My friend Mike is coming this weekend to help me wire in the link ECU. It's not really wiring, it's a plug and play ECU. It's an Evo 1 to 3 link plug and play ECU. You can run them on the GTOs because they have the exact same plugs. I think it's 3 wires that you got to repin. And I also had to, because I want to run the Myvic, I have to I have to swap over. I had to get an XS loom, which is just like an extra set for sensors and the outputs and inputs and stuff like that. It's just a small little loom that has like I think 6 or 7 more wires on it, and I can use them to run the switch for the solenoids on the Myvic. So we'll get that sorted. We'll get that in. Mike's also going to use all the sensors from my Defi dash. To plug into the link, so the link can read all those temperatures and that. And yeah, we should be good. So that's next. Motor's just going to go back in. I've just got to hook the solenoids back up to the motor. And then I'm going to put the coils on and get some HT leads, which I might do because I've got to go into town today. So I might do that now. Yeah, I might get that sorted now. And then we should be all sweet. And we'll get the motor back in and try and get it started. Let's go. Also, if you want to get into the draw to win the steering wheel, just hit that like and comment. Just chuck a comment in and subscribe. That'd be awesome. I found in the bottom of the box the receipt for them. They are sabelt steering wheels, in case you were wondering. And they're actually, like I said, they're a really good quality steering wheel, so they should be all good. Yeah, so just hit that like and chuck a comment down. The comment's purely for the fact that I can see the number of subscribers I have, but I can't always see all of my subscribers, purely for the fact that there's privacy laws and all of that, and if you haven't turned it on to be viewed publicly, no one else can look at it. So if you just chuck a comment on, like if yours is private, just chuck a comment in so I can see it there, and then I can chuck it into the drawer, and you'll be into the drawer, and like I say, it'll be done on the 1st of July, and good luck. Hopefully you can hear me. She's raining a bit today. So the timing belt and everything is all on now. It's all sorted. Got that all sorted. Next up, I've got to pull these rocker covers off again. As you can see down in here, there's a nut with like a screw head on top, and they're all adjusters that I've got to set the adjustments on, so I'll get through that, do both of those. It's just easier to do while the engine's out of the car. I'll get that all sorted, and then I'll put the rocker covers on, and then I'm going to have to make some sort of lifting mounts to lift it in and out, but we'll cross that when we get to it. So we'll get these lifters all adjusted and go from there. Alright, so she's all together. As you can see, I'm running leads. I'm not running I'm not running coil-on plugs or anything. That's literally because I don't have the coils for it, so I'm just going to use the standard coils in the leads. I did have a couple of hurdles to overcome with these, because the tubes for the leads are so far down you can't actually get any force to push them onto the spark plugs. So I made myself a special little tool using an old screwdriver, and so you just slide that in and push it down, and it clicks on top of the lead and pushes it in, so that's all good. And then sorry if I sound, I'm turning around, where am I? Sorry if I sound a bit funny, I do have a bit of a cold at the moment, so yeah, bed rest and etc, but got to get this finished because Mike's going to be here tomorrow to start wiring it, so need to just chop on. And as you would have seen before when I was doing the lash adjusters or whatever, adjusting them up, I had this tool here, which is just the ring off a spanner welded onto the end of a short extension, and that just does the job really well. And just adjust it, loosen it off, adjust the nut, and then do them back up. She's all good. Alright, so next up is getting it back into the car. So the motor's almost all back together now. Everything over here is all connected up. Fuel lines are all connected up, and the slave cylinder, gear selectors, the power steering's all hooked back up. I've just got to hook up the vacuum lines. Over the side, turbo, wastegate, screamer, exhaust, dump, all that's all hooked back up, so that's good. Just got to put the alternator back in. I have an issue here because the heads are higher. My throttle cable now rubs on my belt, so I'm going to have to make something just to lift it up a little bit, but it's not a big deal. So yeah, we're getting there. I've just got to go under and bolt up the exhaust to the rest of the exhaust, and then I can start doing things like fitting in and seeing if my new radiator fits, and some other bits and pieces. I want to hook the battery up and just turn the fuel pump on to see if I got any fuel leaks with these new injectors. If not, sweet as. If so, I need to try and get that sorted. So I might do that now and see what happens. Alright, so everything's hooked up now. All the exhaust is on, all the drivetrain parts are on. So it's literally just a case of wiring everything back together now. New radiator's in. It doesn't, well, it fits, but it doesn't. My original mounts here and here no longer will work, so I've cut them off, and I also have a bit of clearance down the bottom here. Let's see if I can get the camera down there. Oh. No, you can't really see it. Hang on, let me just grab it like that. Oh crikey, that's too bright. Alright, so I also got a bit of clearance down there as well. Clearance issues, so I just need to machine that back a bit more and see if I can get that all worked out pretty good. Then that will be sorted, that will be ready to go. Then it'll be a case of putting the intercooler piping on. I've got a weld blow-off valve on it, and I'm all out of focus. A blow-off valve on it, and the inlet air temperature bung on it, and get that sorted. And then it's pretty much just up to, from then it's pretty much just up to Mike for the wiring. I'm not sure how much of the wiring in there I'm going to film, because I don't know if he wants to be on camera, and I'm not going to force him to do it. So if he doesn't, I'll just have to record the first startup, and then maybe afterwards I'll run through what he did. He's a pretty onto it guy, and he's got it all sorted, so he's going to look after me well, so that's good. Hopefully next week we'll get it on the dyno. I can't guarantee that. It will just really depend on how life goes, I suppose. But yeah, no, it's all looking pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with everything. No, I will have to do something for that throttle cable tomorrow. I've got lots of little pieces to keep me busy while Mike's doing the wiring, so yeah, it should be all good. Alright, so next one you should see will be hopefully the first start if everything goes to plan. I can't guarantee it's all going to work out. I can't guarantee it's all going to go to plan. If it does turn to shit, I still have the heads down here. I'll just put the original heads back on, keep the link in it, and get it retuned like that. But we're going to try our best and see what happens. Alright, here we go. I didn't want to run it for too long, so I haven't got any radiator or anything hooked up yet. Alright, welcome back. It is now the weekend after, and she is now all together. But we had quite a few issues doing the setup, mostly with the timing belt. I was running a 6G74 timing belt, because the 6G72 belts are too short. But with the 6G74 belt, I'll show you actually. I drew a diagram for you. So here. So this is a stock GTO belt. It goes over one of these tensioners, which is there, up around the cams, down under the water pump, over the cams, back through one of these offset tensioners, which is mounted on the swing arm with the hydraulic tensioner, and then goes back around the crankshaft pulley. Now with the Myvec one with the 6G72, which is this picture here, it pushed the belt so far over that this no longer was pushing out, but it was at the point where it was at its maximum. And what was going to happen is, because the belt spins this way around and up and over, it was going to pull it up, and if it had pulled it up any maybe 10 mils, the belt was going to hit itself, which went around the water pump there, and that was going to be catastrophic failure. It was just going to be all over. So there was a lot of brain scratching and a lot of thinking, and we did come up with a solution which I'll explain to you in a minute. But also we had to fit a crankshaft position sensor, and what we wanted to do was actually run the position sensor, because it's a 91 twin turbo engine, they don't have because it was a 91, they don't have the factory crank position sensor like the 96s do, or even the Myvec. Where's the Myvec crank? I don't know where it is now. Down here.
as you see here, the Myvec crank pulley has on it a trigger wheel. So as it rotates around, that goes through a Hall effect sensor, and what that does is it tells ECU where it is in the cycle, etc, etc. I couldn't use this one because in the twin turbo oil pump there isn't a relief for it, whereas there's a relief for it in the factory Myvec one. So I couldn't use that. So what I ended up using was another sensor which just read pretty much off each individual tooth, because the Link needed a sensor that could read, what was it, a number of teeth that could be divided by 4, that could be divided into 360, that's right. So just luckily enough, this here had just enough teeth that could be perfectly divided into 360. So we mounted the crank position sensor right here in this gap between that belt and that belt. But with the longer belt, there was no room. So what we ended up doing is we ended up scrapping this whole setup here, and that setup there, so that's gone. And we ran this one in its stock location, that's fine. And then this one here, I machined up a spacer that went behind here and bolted to where this originally bolted to the block. So that part there is where the pivot bolts to the block. So all you got to do is, if you ever wanted to do this, all you literally have to do is remove this, get rid of it, machine up a spacer that is exactly 33 millimeters that can sit in here and go to your block. You run your bolt through there. You don't do it up tight. You run your bolt through there, you torque that one up nice and tight. You run your belt, get it all timed up. You put this one, off like that, and as you're holding your belt, you just twist this around, because it's got the 2 holes there for adjusting, until the belt is at the perfect tension, and then you torque that bolt up, and it's done. And it is literally that simple. And I don't know if some people are going to worry, it doesn't have automatic tensioning or anything like that. When I built my RB30, it never had that. That was the exact same setup, pretty much using those exact same 2 pulleys, and I never had an issue with that. From memory, my RB20 didn't either. I can't actually remember now. But it's worked, so it's done. I had to make here I turned the Myvec block upside down, and I put the crankshaft in the oil pump, and this bolt hole right here, I ended up making a little bracket that came out which held the crank position sensor, and that sits exactly the right distance off the teeth on that. So that was pretty much the biggest issue of the whole thing. I can't really show any of it to you because the covers are all on, and like I told you, I didn't want to film while Mike was here because A, he was only here for a limited amount of time, and B, I really just didn't want to put him under pressure of being on camera or anything like that. But now the car starts, it runs, not overly well because it's not tuned. I had to put in inlet air temperature sensor. These wires are all going to be tidied up. Mike's like, do you want me to tidy these up? And I was like, no, it's right, I'll sort that. He spent a lot of the time cleaning up my old dodgy loom in the car, and that looks pretty much perfect now. So I'm extremely happy with that. I had to rewire these coils just to, normally on the GTO coils, that coil pack for number 1, cylinder 1 and cylinder 6, no, cylinder 5 is there, and that one's there, but I just had to change them around because my leads that I got weren't quite long enough to reach there. So these are just I don't know whatever brand they are, Eagle I think they are. Yeah, Eagle 8mm leads. I had to run leads because I had the original coil on plug, because Myvecs run coil on plug on the back, and then they run leads around to the front. But I had the coils and I have the leads, but I didn't have the plugs to plug onto the coils, and so it just worked out easier to run this setup. I think once it's all tidied up and cleaned up, it's going to look pretty cool. And if it doesn't break down under the power, I don't think I'll be changing it anytime soon. Got the Myvic solenoids there and over here. They're all wired up. I just haven't plugged them in yet because I've got to run the loom through from the inside of the car out to here. But yeah, the car starts, the car runs. It runs reasonably good. I do have a V-band that's leaking. The front one's leaking, which makes a nice change because it's normally the back one that leaks, and that's a pain in the butt. So I'm going to quickly pull off the wastegate and see why that's leaking. I think it's probably just not seated because they're actually a male and female V-band, and if they don't quite seat properly, they just leak. So, and you can clamp it back up, but if they're not locked in together, the clamp will still clamp like it's tightening, but it just doesn't work properly. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to have a quick clean up of that. Then I'm probably going to have a clean up of the wires up on top and get that all nice and tidy. I have to put I had that blow off valve on my on the motor originally, but I never got around to putting it back on. But I do need to put something back on, because believe it or not, I actually noticed a massive difference in throttle response from having it to not having it. So I will put it back on just to have that better throttle response between gears. I probably won't need it with the Myvic because it's going to be hopefully pretty insane. Another thing we did is the Myvic runs a cam position sensor, which is this trigger plate here, and it normally has 3 or 4, I can't remember now, 3 or 4 of these, like these big block teeth. So we had to cut all the other ones off except for that one, just so the link could know where it was in its cycle. So that wasn't exactly a hard one, but it's just something that was worth mentioning. If we hadn't changed the belt and we had to have run the crank position sensor somewhere else, I was just going to put it probably up here, just get a trigger wheel and mount it here. But as it is, where it went, it worked out so well, so I'm pretty wrapped with that.